Hey guys, so today in this video we are going to go over the description of Santa and how he is the counterfeit, the fake savior of Jesus Christ. This Santa Claus figure that paganism and Satan has created for us to make the focus of Christmas on has taken away from the birth of Jesus Christ, our Savior and our Messiah. And Santa has become the false Christ, the false Savior of the world that brings a source of hope to humanity through the giving of gifts. Now let's break this down. Let's talk about the description. The colors that Santa Claus wears. We look at the red suit that Santa wears. Red represents what? It represents royalty, it represents sacrifice, it represents nobility. Now white we know represents purity and holiness. Now let's look at the hat that Santa Claus wears. It's the same shape as the hat that the Pope or the Bishop of the Catholic Church wears. Wow, right? I know. What does Santa Claus ride? He rides a sled with reindeer, which is a false chariot, and false angelic beings, which we refer to as reindeer. We know in Zechariah chapter 6 verse 1 it says that he saw the chariots from heaven coming down. What else does Santa Claus sit on? As he sits on a false throne, a throne that brings judgment to the world. We also learn that the color bronze is a significance of authority according to Revelations. Now we also know that he sets the throne that is placed in front of a tree. And what was Jesus sacrificed on? He was sacrificed on a tree. And it's surrounded by presents around it. When you go to the mall or these places where they have this Santa Claus set up, he sits on a throne with a tree behind him and presents that are around it. And what this is it's an altar. What does Santa Claus work with? He works with elves. Elves are a counterfeit of an angelic presence. So they are essentially false angels. Where does Santa Claus live? We know that Santa lives in the North Pole, which is a false Eden. The North Pole is supposed to be this perfect, great, magical place where the elves make their toys, and the place where Santa Claus lives. It promotes a false Eden. Now also you can even go deeper with that of the North Pole is in the center of the earth. That's where it is. It's in the middle of the Arctic Ocean, and it's where the invisible line of the earth axis is, that the earth rotates around the sun. Now let's look at something deeper. Santa doesn't age. He doesn't get older and he doesn't get younger. He stays the same for all of eternity. Well, that sounds like what Jesus does too. And did you know that Santa Claus was also a carpenter by trade? Who else was a carpenter in the Bible? Jesus. So you can see how all of these things counterfeit what Jesus Christ was. Now let's look at specifics of how. How does Santa Claus counterfeit Christ? Well, first he blasphemes God. He claims to be omniscient, all-knowing, and he claims to be omnipresent everywhere at once. And we know that only Jesus Christ is omniscient and all-knowing, the only true and living God. Let's look at number 2. He comes at an hour that no one knows. Well, in the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 36, it says that no one knows the day, the time, or the hour except the Father. That's a counterfeit Christ. We also look at number 3, that Santa Claus has a naughty or nice list, which is a false gospel. So if your name is written on the bad list, the naughty list, and you don't get anything, it promotes a reward or a punishment based on your actions. The book of Revelation talks about separating the sheep from the goat. So Santa Claus has become a measure and a ruler of judgment, which judgment only belongs to God. Santa Claus is a giver of gifts. And we know in James chapter 1 verse 17 that it says that God is the giver of the gifts, not Santa Claus. Santa Claus comes to bring judgment. Good or bad, he determines if you're going to get a gift or not. Now notice where he comes into your house, that Santa Claus comes into your house through the fireplace, which is a false altar. And then we leave milk and cookies out for Santa Claus at night. You know what this is? This is a false communion. Instead of the bread and the wine that Jesus told his disciples to partake in before he went to be crucified, and it's what we are supposed to partake in, to eat of his body and drink of his blood. So the false communion is milk and cookies, and by leaving milk and cookies out for Santa Claus, we are keeping this altar alive in our households. You can see deeper into this in the Apocrypha in the book of Daniel, where it talks about Bel and the dragon, and you can see the story of what is portrayed in that book of Daniel. Number 5 is that Santa Claus is the source of hope for all humanity, that he has become this savior type of figure that has replaced Jesus Christ. He's also, like we covered earlier, he's known as Father Christmas. And we know that the word says that only God, only Jesus Christ can carry the title of Father. It says, call no other man Father, but yet we have adopted Santa Claus as Father Christmas. Notice that Santa Claus specifically targets children. It's children that Satan is really after the most. Those that are in covenant with God and the children, because if he can get into your children at an early age, then he can form them into their adulthood and keep a hook in them and keep them in bondage. Now let's cover the last thing. What does Santa Claus say? He says, ho, 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 which is the counterfeit to holy, 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 which is described in Revelation chapter 4, verse 18. So you decide for yourself what you choose to put your hope in. I know I'm putting my hope and my faith in Jesus Christ and not Santa Claus. So let the facts show you. These are facts, not opinions. Be blessed.